being prepared is actually the best thing you can do. Because no matter how you look at it, there is definitely lower tolerance for making mistakes because of the biases that people hold. So, generally speaking, if you are in an environment where it's generally not a very common thing for, say, women to be in technology, or it's not very common. There is usually a perception and relatively lower tolerance. So, coming prepared to the table is actually very important.
I think one of the things when I was early in my career, I felt that I had to know everything about what I was doing, and that asking questions was a sign of weakness. And I think what I learned very quickly was actually the more questions you ask, the more people want to work with you and the more they want to help you learn. And so my insight in that moment was also it created better work-life balance by not trying to know everything and fill your brain with all the things that maybe you were going down the wrong path or maybe I was going down the wrong path that I was trying to gain insight in. And so one of the challenges was really just getting the confidence to go ahead and ask the questions and not be afraid to just ask a lot of questions, because the people I was working with, and I think Tawna said it best, I was in a team of all men and I was the only woman. And, you didn't want to look like you didn't know what you were doing. But what I recognized is they were happy to answer the questions because it made them feel like they had some insight and some mentoring that they could provide back to me. And so it worked really well.
I think I was the first female VP of engineering at Synopsys. So I went through a lot of training classes because there was a lot of, yes, as you say, women are, they have some different characteristics. So with it, they're not seen as role models. And so this can actually make some advancement more difficult. One of the things I saw with the different classes and even I've seen is confidence. Having that confidence, I think, is one of the things that differentiate women who've actually been able to be successful. It can be confident, when you're confident, you are able to ask the right questions. If you're confident, it means you kind of know you have a right to be in the room. And so you have something you bring to the table. And I think if you can confidently show that, you will be judged a bit differently. I think some of this, you've gone back and forth with some of these quotas. Are they good or bad? Because some of the quotas, people do assume that, your people are hired just because they're women or this, and in many cases, I've seen it go both ways. You can see more training because they want to try to get something better. But the thing is that I've also had somebody say, you don't seem like vice president material. Because you don't act the same as your male counterparts. So I think that what you need to do is, I think the most important thing you can do is to have that confidence. I think, what I've heard is that, with sales, one of the key things you say is fake it till you make it, which basically means that you have some confidence in yourself. It means that obviously if you say something which doesn't make sense, you're gonna lose that confidence or respect of people, but you should have the confidence to say what you think you bring to the table. Be there. There's a reason why you're there. Show up. Don't be afraid of saying, oh, what are they thinking about me? Just try to be yourself, make an impact, and project that confidence. And I think that's one of the things which I think makes the bigger difference. And I think that's something which is more difficult for women in many cases. I think one of the things I went to one of the classes that they said a thing that's unique to women is when they go to a restaurant and they say, what are you going to have for lunch? A male will just pick it out, and then the women often will say, what are you going to have? What are you going to have? So some of this decisiveness and confidence really projects a bit different. And I think especially since we are primarily in a male world, especially in technology, I think you have to understand that and be able to work in that world.
When I first joined Cadence, there weren't a lot of women, but there were more women than when I was at Varian. That was extraordinarily fast-paced. I call application engineering firefighting. There wasn't a lot of documentation, and there was not a lot of tolerance for mistakes. So one of the things I learned just by I don't know how I ever learned this, But one of the things I learned that was so helpful was I would create little tech tips. I'd figure something out, I create a tech tip, I'd post it on either on an internal website or I'd post it on our company support site. And I just did this. It became a habit. And the funny thing is I did this because that way I could go back and find the answer later. And it also helped other people around me. And, you know, I have, over the years, you know, this has been a habit of mine for 29 years. And so over the years, it helped me gain confidence because people started coming to me because they knew they learned that I was a subject expert and very knowledgeable. And if I didn't know the answer, I knew how to dive into it and figure it out. And so it cracks me up because I've won quite a few awards on my technical contributions at Cadence, you know, especially, you know, on our customer website. And I'm asked to mentor people technically and also in process and procedures. And it all started with anxiety about remembering, fear of looking stupid, and me just creating a system where I knew that I could thrive and get access to things very quickly. So that is, it's kind of like a weakness that I turned into a strength, and it has served me very well. The other thing I want to say quickly about confidence is how you speak. When women speak, they tend to have, their voice tends to go up at the end of the sentence, and they always sound like they're asking a question, you know. And one of the things I was taught very early on is when I speak, end on a lower note, because that's how men typically talk. And you sound much more confident and less questioning of your abilities.